So I'm going to talk about what The Economist gets wrong about the hotel protests. So I subscribe to The Economist. I read it because it's widely read and respected. It sort of distills a lot of information down into quite a concise form. It's a view into our political class, and it's traditionally been quite sort of evidence-based and rooted in Western values. It's rejected fashionable ideologies when they come along, such as gender ideology. It was an early mainstream critic of gender ideology, which, I mean, you could ask the stupidest man in Wetherspoons could tell you that drugging, sterilizing, maiming children is possibly not the best thing for them. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe he can write for The Economist too one day.
Yeah, he might do a better job. But yeah, I mean, the trouble is the sort of post-war liberal consensus that The Economist still subscribes to is starting to unravel. When we touched on it in your segment when we're talking about, like blank slatism, for example, this idea that people are just interchangeable economic units and you can move, if you move the population of Somalia to Norway and the population of Norway to Somalia, Norway wouldn't be the same, and Somalia wouldn't be the same.
No.
And Somalia would probably be a highly functioning country.
Although swapping out one bunch of Sea Raiders for another might be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, that's a good point. They wouldn't have to change all the exhibits in the museum.
Yeah.
Just change what the boats look like. So The Economist did a big this week. They did a big in here. Did a big segment on 1 year since the riots. It's about disorder on the streets since Southport, and it says Britain should have recovered from the disturbances by now. Instead, it has got worse. So let's see how our elites, how our political class view Southport and the hotel protests since then. So the article, I'll just read the article and we can comment on it as we go through. It is hard to recover from an enormity, and Southport, north of Liverpool, suffered too. On July 29th last year, a 17-year-old named Axel Rudakabana murdered 3 young girls and tried to kill many others. The next day, as rumours spread that the killer was a Muslim asylum seeker, a mob attacked a nearby mosque and a police van. The windows of the mosque are still covered with protective screens. And it's interesting, they talk about, in this article, they talk about the sort of false information that was spread. But I mean, the sort of mainstream narrative is that he wasn't a Muslim asylum seeker, but his parents came here from Rwanda in around about the turn of the century. Very likely, although we've never been explicitly told, very likely, if not as asylum seekers under asylum, the asylum system, then certainly fleeing the genocide and the war in Rwanda. So, I don't think it's misinformation to say that he is in some way. He was born in the UK shortly after that, but I think it's it's not misinformation to say he's an asylum seeker. As for the fact, is he Muslim? I mean, he's not. He wasn't raised Muslim. Was he radicalized online into Islamist ideology? He had Al-Qaeda manuals, and it would fit with a pattern of ethnic minority men born in Britain, radicalized online, such as Sudesh Aman. So this guy here, he was radicalized online. We've seen many instances of this, and I don't know if the alienation that somebody who isn't native to the country, might feel would play into that, so people would look for an identity, look for some sort of revenge. Axel Rudakabana certainly spoke about finding revenge. So what were his motivations? Did he have an ideology? They're trying to get the authorities are trying to get Axel Rudakabana's browsing history. Certainly seems to be taking a long time. You'd think that'd be maybe something that'd be moved to the top of the pile on that desk. Why is it taking so long? You know what I mean?
Well, they're too busy spying on us for anti-Rudakabana sentiment, aren't they?
How come they can use the Online Safety Act to get anything that we've done online, anything that we've looked at online, but they can't tell us what Axel Rudakabana was looking at online?
Nonsense, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Just liars. They're just lying that they can't do that or haven't done it yet. It's just nonsense. I mean, and also a small point, well, it's not a small point, but a point to make is the fact that he was born here.
Yeah.
So?
Yeah.
So what? Wasn't that Salman Abedi born here? Right, wasn't the jihadi, the Beatles, you remember the Beatles, the four they called them, they went out to Syria and beheaded people. They called them John and Ringo and stuff. They were born here. Yeah. Well, all of the 7-7 and 21-7 bombers, or most of them, at least some of them, on 7-7 anyway, were born here.
If anything, it sort of blows a hole in the whole liberal idea that blank slatism and anybody who comes here, integrates and becomes British. Because we're seeing people born here who certainly carry or seem to be influenced by
Openly hate us.
the culture and history. And also, was he motivated by anti-white racism, the critical race theory that's espoused by the Labour Party, and espoused by the establishment? It's interesting that people with origins in other countries are, if he, like the narrative is that he's a Welsh choir boy. Oh, he's so British. It's like, I think that's the misinformation because people with origins in other countries are encouraged to celebrate their cultural differences and heritage and all that sort of stuff. But Axel Rudikabana is just British. Oh, he's just British, and that's it. There's no influence or any heritage or anything that he's bringing with him that comes from the genocidal nation of Rwanda.
Can you imagine what he was brought up like? Can you imagine? I can't really, but the conversations that must have happened or not happened around their dinner table, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, because children or even teenagers are a reflection of their upbringing. They're a reflection of their parents. Can you imagine what sort of craziness was put into his mind by his parents to do what he did?
Well, I
can only imagine, right?
That's just sort of speculation because his father seems to be integrated, but it's interesting that like you're saying earlier, the people who are born here, that have integrated parents, the first generation migrants who come here have an urge to integrate, but then the second generation, the third generation, the fourth generation, the people that we're told are British are the ones that then have issues with identity, have issues with alienation, have issues with being radicalized online. And I think there's a lot about Axel Rudikabana that we don't know.
And
they're
sure
not telling
keeping
us
a lot from us.
Then the article continues. Still, Southport has taken positive steps. The victims' families have formed community groups and have made it clear that they want no vigil on the anniversary of the murders. Public gardens in Southport's elegant, somewhat faded centre will be renovated as a tribute to the girls. The local MP speaks of stronger emotional bonds and a growing willingness to help others. But in the rest of Britain, by contrast, the wounds inflicted a year ago fester. Violence broke out in many cities and towns after the Southport riot. Some places like Belfast and London have long histories of disorder. In others, the disturbances were shocking. Protesters clashed with the police in Weymouth, a southern seaside town. One of the worst riots was in Tamworth, near Birmingham, a town that gave its name to a fine pig breed. The crowd there attacked police, smashed its way into a hotel with asylum seekers inside and tried to set it on fire. Some were more like organised assaults than protests. Few attendees carried placards, although some were draped in British or English flags. They attacked mosques and hotels containing asylum seekers. Anybody who tried to stop them became a target. In Sunderland, a taxi carrying Filipino nurses was attacked. In Burnley, Muslim graves were vandalised. Obviously it's terrible that graves are vandalised, Filipino nurses are attacked, but it's almost as if the government should have listened to people when they expressed their wishes democratically. Every time there's been a vote or a proxy vote on immigration, like Brexit, like anything like this, nobody's ever clicked the button saying, please, lots more Islamic migration, please, lots more people come from, deeply alien medieval cultures.
It's not like we haven't, generations and generations of Brits haven't been voting for less immigration since Powell.
Yeah.
Right, genuinely since it all started.
Yeah.
Right.
That article listing off everything that was done wrong by the protesters, does it also go into any of the details of all the crimes that pro-Muslim counter-protesters did?
Exactly.
Does it?
Later on, it basically refers to them as just anti-racism or anti-fascism groups, when we know they're the far left radicals. It's absolutely mental.
Or using their mosques as sort of weapon caches.
Yeah, and being encouraged, being told by the police, "Oh, leave your weapons at the mosque." It's like leave your weapons at the mosque. Excuse me.
Or beating the crap out of some random guy out.
Call it the Arsenal.
Yeah,
that's right.
Beating the crap out of some random white guy sitting outside a pub, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah,
There's lots of examples of things like that.
Loads of examples, and they said, remember the 13-year-old girl who was charged over a hotel riot. So if we move on to the next one,
sure,
the next tab. So this is a 13-year-old girl charged over a hotel riot. She admitted a violent disorder charge in that she used or threatened unlawful violence that would cause a person to fear for their personal safety. So these adult male asylum seekers were terrified of this 13-year-old girl. A group of adult male asylum seekers terrified that a 13-year-old girl was going to beat them up. I mean, that's really sort of stretching the bounds of plausibility. It's
Yeah.
It's almost a complete subversion of the grooming gangs. It's like now we're going to see the grooming gangs. We're going to see the victims of the grooming gangs prosecuted because for forcing themselves on. I mean, it's an absolute nonsense. And it says most rioters seem to have been local people. Some had violent histories. Blah blah blah. But the riots also drew families who had come to watch and cheer. Almost 1/5 of those arrested in Stoke were under 18. Well, now they've got the vote, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously that vote will get ignored if they vote the wrong way, to the regime. But this bit's interesting. Protests and riots do not just accomplish tangible things in the moment, such as damaging property. They also create movements, as people who hold niche or scorned views see their passions reflected in others' eyes and actions. Mr. Drury, who studies crowds, notes that Tommy Robinson, a rabble-rouser, their words, not mine, held a large rally in London 2 days before the Southport murders. Extremists may have been in a confident mood, believing their vision of a foreigner-free country was widely shared. This seems...
it's the Tommy fans that are the extremists.
Yeah, if you skimmed over that, you'd think Tommy Robinson was exploited the murders before they happened.
Well, Tommy Robinson doesn't believe in a foreigner-free country.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So they've entirely mischaracterised.
That's an absolute myth. It's a myth that Tommy Robinson is a foaming-mouthed racist. He's actually supportive of immigrants. If we move on to the next tab, here we can see Tommy Robinson actually... not this tab. Where's the one?
I got another. That one?
Where is it? Yeah, this one. So this is basically they did a sort of a street interview with this black British guy, and I mean the guy doesn't completely, perfectly enunciate his feelings, but he seems like a nice guy, and I think a lot of people felt that all right, he can't name certain things about Britain, British history or whatever, but he's essentially imbued with, relatively British values. And Tommy Robinson sticks up for him, which, I think a lot of people did. A lot of people were saying, no, he's not British because, blah, blah, blah. Tommy Robinson stuck up for him. Would a foaming-mouthed racist stick up for him? That's, Tommy Robinson's supposed to be. I don't know. It seems ridiculous. The article continues. The riots delivered a brutal version of that message to migrants. Rioting hit Stoke-on-Trent in the West Midlands on the day that Asha, a charity, had taken many asylum seekers to the seaside. They were marooned at a motorway service station while the police worked to restore order. Godfrey Semeniga of Asha notices that asylum seekers seldom hang around central Stoke in the early evenings these days, as they did before the riots occurred. People are still very scared, he says. I mean, did anybody ask the residents of Stoke if they wanted a bunch of asylum-seeking, adult males from medieval cultures hanging around in their city centre? And their 12-year-old daughters are walking past these guys? Well, you know what I mean? What about the feelings of safety? We're so concerned about the feelings of safety of these adult males who've decided to jump on a boat and get here. What about the feelings of safety of British children? Why are we prioritising their safety and not prioritising British children's safety? It just blows my mind.
Well, also just something we covered on the podcast last week was that when these illegal hotels go up, they don't even have to inform the locals that they're happening. They can they'll just spring up one day and you'll be like, oh, so that's a thing now, just in the centre of my community, right next to my school.
In fact, the Epping one, I think they deliberately didn't tell the parents because they were worried about any, negative backlash or whatever. So then the parents don't even know, oh, by the way, you should start driving your kid to school. You got young daughters, you should start, walking them to school instead of letting them walk in what was previously a pleasant, homogenous British area. It's not anymore. It's been colonised by a regime that hates you.
Who wrote that article?
So this, I don't know if they actually put authors in the Economist.
They're saying that the illegal invaders no longer feel comfortable loitering in the evening in towns. Good. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and they're unwittingly, saying it's like with Ballymena, the government, the regime has unwittingly said, oh, by the way, if you want to effect change, there's no point going to the authorities. There's no point complaining democratically, raising your voice in a council meeting. We'll just call you racist and throw you out. Or Laminihan, who is a resident in Epping. She raised the issue in a council meeting. She was worried about the hotel, the migrant hotel. She was thrown out of the meeting. So then what are you leaving people as an option to do, except for direct action? It's ridiculous. So the article continues. Britain's confidence in multiculturalism was shaken too. Hope Not Hate, an anti-fascist group. Hope Not Hate are an anti-fascist or anti-racist group in the same way that the Democratic Republic of North Korea is democratic. It's ridiculous.
Nick Lowell's actually spread real disinformation.
Absolutely.
Yes,
very dangerous, very inflammatory. Could possibly have spurred real life violence. He said that basically said that there are acid attacks against Muslim women. So the implication was that it's white British men throwing acid in British women. I mean, he's straight away a basic sense check. Where are the white British men who've done that? You know what I mean? That's not a white British.
Not our cultural thing.
Exactly. That's other cultures that do that, and I think we know which ones they are. But it's interesting. So British Future, a think tank, shows that people are more concerned about divisions between immigrants and natives than between any other groups, including the rich and poor. And attitudes to Muslims and immigrants has quickly hardened. I think they did surveys right after the Southport riots that showed that people were very dismissive of the rioters, didn't agree with the rioters, and we're sort of more sympathetic towards the migrants, and that's now changed. I don't know if it's just the ongoing reality of the situation and the fact that things are really rapidly getting worse, and there are no brakes on this train apparently. And they talk about the police vigorously pursued brick chuckers and laptop demagogues alike, arresting more than 1,800 people. We were arresting people and putting them in court the next day, says Ian Drummond-Smith, who investigated the riots at the National Police Chiefs Council. It helped that body-worn cameras and CCTV are ubiquitous. There's no exploration here of potential subversion of the independence of the criminal justice system. There certainly seems suspicions that judges and duty solicitors were being steered by the state, being steered by the party, and they should be, completely independent. Your duty solicitor, if you're arrested, your duty solicitor, there's a state-provided solicitor, should just act in your own best interests. And there seem to be a lot of people who are advised to plead guilty to relatively minor things. Lucy Connolly, it's just a tweet. She got 32 months after pleading guilty. So they're advised to plead guilty in the expectation they're going to be, let off with a slap in the wrist. And instead, they're getting the maximum sentence possible. So is there any collusion going on? I mean, I'm very suspicious of that. Other people are very suspicious.
Well, they don't even really try hide it, do they?
We've spoken to all sorts of legal eagles, Robin Tilbrook or even Stephen Wolfe. Don't plead guilty.
Yeah.
Just don't do that.
Yeah.
If they tell you you'll get, we'll let you off with a slap on the wrist if you just plead guilty now. Here, sign it. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's
a lie. That's a lie. They're lying to you.
That's like some of the Turkish police or the Soviet police, the NKVD would do. Like, tell you put stuff in front of you. Oh, just sign this and we'll make it all go away. We'll stop electrocuting your testicles. It's like, don't do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think we're probably just a few days away from
the electrodes.
Brits putting electrodes in testicles.
Have your day in court. If they're accusing you of something, let a magistrate or a jury decide. Don't just plead guilty.
Look at Jamie Michaels. So Jamie Michaels is an army veteran who made a video after the Southport killings, and really he just made some very good points that I think most people would agree with. He didn't say anything, he said everything should be peaceful, any protesting or whatever. He just made some very good points, and he was arrested on the orders, or on the after he was reported by a Labour politician. So this is the party directing the arms of the state to do their political dirty work. So he was arrested, and he had to spend, because he pleaded not guilty, he had to spend a couple of weeks on remand. Because that was the other thing. People were told if you plead guilty, then you'll get out of remand. You won't be held until your trial. So he spent a couple of weeks in jail, but it took 17 minutes for a jury to find him not guilty. The thing was, a lot of these cases are just complete shams, complete farces. So like you say, if you plead not guilty, it's gonna all fall down in court.
That's what they say. We'll hold you on remand. You can go home today.
Yeah.
You can go home in an hour if you just plead guilty.
Yeah.
And so people go, oh, okay, I don't want to be held on remand.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a good idea.
Yes.
You'll end up doing more time in the clink.
Yeah,
ultimately.
absolutely. And, with your reputation absolutely smeared and everything.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the anti-racist groups, it says, played a crucial role in the riots. They rallied in Stoke-on-Trent, hoping that anti-immigrant protesters would abuse them rather than attacking targets such as mosques. Bait on the hook, as one later put it. So they're inadvertently admitting that the left-wing counter-protests went to provoke violence. They were like, we want them to attack us instead of the, whatever it is, the police or the mosque or whatever. It's like, no, you're basically just saying you went there because you wanted a ruck, you wanted a fight.
Well, there are headlines to create, aren't they? People to put in prison,
There's a narrative to construct.
Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, for all that people are called neo-Nazis, far-right racists, I mean, do these look like far-right racists to you? I mean, probably
the homemade placards.
Yeah, probably do by now.
Well, they are all guilty of being white.
Although the woman who apprehended
greatest crime of all,
the woman who apprehended the alleged nonce in Epping was a black woman, and it's interesting that there are black people protesting. I saw videos of a black guy smashing the window of a police van. So it's really about values rather than skin color. But yeah, they do seem pretty white here.
well, it's
Inexcusable.
2025, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Where are the obese black women?
not on Scammers Watch.
But I mean, do these look like neo-Nazis? And like you say, homemade signs. You saw the Stand Up for Noncism signs, all printed, all funded, all organised by, various arms of the state, NGOs, things like that.
Especially as more and more ordinary people, just concerned citizens, come out now on the streets, the government has an even greater impetus to get the counter-protesters on the streets, to at least give the appearance of some, oh no, there is another side that agrees with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Look at all the placards, look at all the people.
Yeah.
Right? Obvious nonsense, totally astroturfed, and everyone can see it.
Yeah.
But that's obviously the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's fooling anybody anymore. And yeah, the article continues. Most dispiriting are the political changes over the past year. Last summer, Britons thought the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, handled the riots fairly well.
Did we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the polls, they did say. I mean, I think it's because he showed a bit of toughness and resolve. But really, what he should have done is come out and be like, listen, I understand. That Rwanda plan that we all voted against, we've decided is a good idea. You should have done something to just acknowledge that, the British people I really think that British people should, at the end of the day, have some say in how the country's run. And yet, people back then, they gave lower marks to Nigel Farage, leader of Reform, who had been railing against asylum seekers for years. In a much watched video shot in 2020, he said the residents of one hotel could be terrorists and other asylum seekers had committed horrible acts in our country. When the riots broke out, he questioned whether the police were telling the truth about Mr. Rudakabana. Now, they're sort of implying there that Nigel Farage was spreading misinformation. He wasn't. The residents could well be terrorists, and it's overwhelmingly likely that some of them are. I mean, look at the next tab. Taliban fighters brought to the UK are jihadists. There's thousands of jihadists, thousands of people who are on the side of the Taliban coming in.
Didn't you know they can come in legally as well?
Yeah, we've had so many terrorists, like Salman Abedi, the Manchester Arena bomber. He'd gone back to Libya. He was rescued from Libya by the Royal Navy and brought back to the UK. He's like essentially a refugee from Libya. Refugees sometimes commit horrific things. If you bring people from, the Horn of Africa or Afghanistan or whatever, it's very likely that a lot of them are going to at least sympathize with Islamism. Moving on, in the past week, demonstrators have gathered in Epping to protest outside a hotel which houses asylum seekers, including a man charged with sexual assault. Protesters chanted, "Send them home and save our kids." Mr. Farage warned of civil disobedience on a vast scale. On July 23rd, protesters assembled for a second night outside an empty hotel in London, following false claims that asylum seekers from Epping had been moved there. I mean,
it was just just a different set of illegal immigrants in a different hotel. Wasn't the same.
Yeah, just coincidentally, the day after they'd been moved out of the hotel in Epping. I mean, I don't know. I think I think, asylum seekers were definitely moved there, if they're from Epping or not. And they're not asylum seekers from Epping. Nobody's seeking asylum from Epping yet. You know what I mean? They're from Somalia, Ethiopia, wherever. People have come across on boats because they want to work for Deliveroo.
Well, in fact, the people, a lot of people in Epping are, you could say, sort of fleeing themselves, right? They fled to Epping from the centre of London.
Exactly, yeah. The white flight. I mean, this is a lot of the British property market is just based on, people wanting to live around other native Brits or other, people who have British values.
Something that, like, everyone before 1946 was just allowed to do.
Yeah, without being called an evil racist.
Without the entire apparatus of the state.
Yeah. And
it down on you.
The article goes on to refer to criticise Tory MPs for referring to two-tier policing and two-tier justice, which implies that white people are treated more harshly than others. But there is open two-tier justice. I mean, we can openly see it.
Yeah,
it's mental, and it's not just in the last year. Going back decades with the grooming gangs, with the establishment, fearful of any uprising if they tell the truth. If people find out about it, they instead try and keep the lid on it. They're so worried about community cohesion. If community cohesion is such a concern, why are you bringing in people from far off, really alien cultures and dumping them on cohesive communities? Like, these places, Epping was already a cohesive community.
Yeah.
It's not going to be improved by, dumping hotels full of migrants. And we're going to see the country balkanize and splinter because, I mean, there's left-wing areas where people are like, oh my God, we need more migrants and stuff. And I think it's absolutely essential that we place the migrants in those areas, because at the moment a lot of the the Lib Dem areas, the Green Party areas, are quite leafy, quite nice, well-to-do boroughs. So they're not living up against the issues that they're creating with their opinions.
Well, you see how the Boris wave impacted public opinion in that regard, because the Boris wave was so huge, so seismic, and was smuggled in whilst we were all locked in our own homes.
Yeah.
So when people came out again, they went, hang on, my area looks really different now. Yeah. And all of a sudden,
now it's matching. Now it's matching the adverts on the
NIMBY began to hate.
The two-tier policing, two-tier justice, two-tier reporting. It's been going on for many a year, though. You might not remember this. You might be a bit young, but I'm sure you'll remember this. Do you remember Damilola Taylor?
Yeah.
If anyone who doesn't remember or isn't British, there was this little black African boy that was stabbed to death, tragically, in a stairwell somewhere in London.
Yeah.
And no one knew who did it for quite a few years, and they thought it was another Stephen Lawrence. They assumed it would be a white person that killed this kid, and so it was like a big deal. And then eventually, a few years later, they found out it was another black boy. There wasn't much older, and then never hear from it again. Never hear about it again. Yeah. But Damilola Taylor was being hammered with it. Damilola Taylor. And then nothing.
Yeah, because Stephen Lawrence, I mean, that and the McPherson report that came out, there's an inquiry afterwards that uncovered, systemic racism in the police and all the public services and stuff. And that had such a long-term impact on policing and all the stuff that was happening in Rotherham was, partly because of that massive overreaction where people were so fearful of appearing racist or being called racist that they'd rather let girls be raped and killed than than suffer. It's
a sick society.
Yeah,
it's sick. It's a sickness.
Yeah,
it's diseased. It's corrupt.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason, the grooming gangs, part of the reason it took Britain such a long time to sort of confront it is because we know that we failed those girls. It's not just that we brought in Mirpur Valley clans that have deeply different attitudes to us and dropped us on these post-industrial towns. It's because we went through this sort of neoliberal change, which was really good for a lot of people. If you're a working class person with gumption and whatever, you can get out, move to London, get a good job, whatever it is. But it completely disrupted these communities, and the natural protectors who would have been in Rotherham to protect these girls, the families that would have stayed together, the church, the community, and all that sort of stuff had all disintegrated and just left these girls at the mercy of the state and at the mercy of whoever wanted to prey on them. We know that Britain failed those girls. It wasn't just that they were preyed on.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.